Friday in the books. Another week in the books, to be honest. I only worked 4 days this week, but that's because I had some traveling to do. Some of you might remember that last time I did a video, I was on my way to North Carolina for a couple of memorial services. You know, unfortunately, as you get older, like I am, you tend to start losing friends, not because you've done anything wrong, but because life is expendable, and because you know, they just, their bodies give up, or they just lose their will to live. So I guess to continue, I was going through the mountains of North Carolina. I was doing some thinking back about when I was a kid and stuff, and how much I used to love the mountains. And it was nice to be able to visit home again in the North Carolina mountains. A lot's changed over the years. You know, they had that flood up there when the hurricane went through, and it was pretty devastating. I was on Interstate 40 coming out of Tennessee, and right around the area where the two tunnels are in a place called Clyde, North Carolina, it was down to 2 lanes. They're pretty devastating. Just the damage, you know, and the 2 lanes were 35 miles an hour. Eastbound, everything was going pretty good, but when you were coming, I was looking at the traffic westbound on 40 coming up the mountain to go into Tennessee, and it was probably about a 10-mile stretch that it was bumper to bumper and a dead stop a couple times. And I was really dreading going back home, because I didn't know if I wanted to go that way or not, because, you know, it was all backed up. But I was going to be leaving Charlotte, North Carolina on Sunday afternoon, so I figured it wouldn't be too bad. So I gambled on it on the way back, and fortunate enough for me, I was able to navigate the mountains pretty well. It was still 35 miles an hour, but there was no traffic. And so I left Charlotte about, I don't know, it was probably 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I got home here in Missouri about 3:30 in the morning. And, you know, that's a long trip when you're making it by yourself. Long and boring. There's a lot to see, but it's, you know, without somebody in the car with you, it begins to get a little monotonous. And but anyway, all in all, it was a good visit. You know, I got to see the grandbabies, and I got to see my oldest daughter and her man friend. And my ex-wife was there, and, you know, we talked a little bit. We're kind of on speaking terms. We're not exactly what we call friends, but, you know, I'm on speaking terms with her, so that's okay, I guess. So Thursday was the first memorial I had to go to. It was for a lady named Peggy Medlin, who I met probably around the 2002-ish era of my life. Moved in a trailer park in Peachland, North Carolina, and her and her family lived in the same park that we did. So we all became friends. They would come over and, you know, visit with us, and of course our kids all went to the same school, and she had 2 little ones about the same age as my daughters, so they got along and everything. So we all became friends. Well, we moved to Waxhaw, North Carolina, a little under a year later, and it wasn't long after that they moved to Mineral Springs, which Mineral Springs and Waxhaw, you know, kind of border each other. They're municipalities kind of out in the country. Well, Waxhaw's not really in the country. It's a small city, suburb city or something like that. mean, it's incorporated. It's got its own police department, thing, town hall and all that. But Mineral Springs is kind of like a little municipality. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and it's all governed by what is that? Union County, Mecklenburg County. I forget which county. I think it's Union County that it's in, North Carolina. But anyway, Peggy was sick for quite a while. She's 61 years old. She had a panic attack and ended up, I think, if I'm not mistaken, she had a small stroke. And she was in like a rehab facility, rehab type nursing home, and was doing fairly well for a while, but I think just, being lonely and not being with her family and things like that, I think she developed a slight case of dementia. And usually when that happens, people don't last long because of the medications they put them on. So yeah, she came to that, and she had already been taken care of, but they had the memorial service for her on Thursday. Now that was Thursday morning after I got there, and I tried to visit with a few friends in North Carolina, but when you go during the week like that, people are working, they got things going on in their own lives, so it's really kind of hard to make any plans with anybody to meet up or do anything. So I ended up going to Sunset Gardens a cemetery. I have a friend that was buried out there. I lost back in 1990. So I've been going to this thing for 35 years. I've been visiting this cemetery for this girl that I was real close to in school. I honestly think I would have married her if she had lived long enough, but that was a long time ago. But I'm always, she's always on my mind, and she's been gone 35 years, and you think, after that period of time somebody would forget somebody, but I guess when you love never dies. It's everlasting. But so I spent more time than I only usually go for 15 or 20 minutes when I go. I always try and make it a point to visit when I go home to Charlotte, and so I sat on the ground and drank a Cheerwine soft drink and talked to her for a little while and kind of let her know what was up, and that I was sorry it took so long to get back and everything. And I guess she hears me. I don't know. They say that when people love each other, there's always a connection, and so maybe that's still connected. But anyway, so I spent about a half hour, 45 minutes or something like that there, and then went back and visited with my daughter and my grandson and that kind of thing. Just kind of took it easy the rest of the day. The memorial service was really nice, though. It was, it's your typical memorial service. You get together with a bunch of people that you don't know. Well, I knew a few people there. I knew her kids and her husband, and he was doing rather well through this, but it was a pretty nice service. And it was sad, but, there was a lot of people that had a lot of good things to say about Peggy. Peggy was just a wonderful person, altogether. And I could not be there. As difficult as it was, I'm sure there are people that, thought the same thing. Well, I can't not be there, but I just can't go or take off work or whatever. Those are the people that didn't show up, but there were probably about 40 people there, and it was nice to, hear stories and things like that from other people who knew Peggy. I didn't share any memories myself because I'm not really good at dealing with crowds. And I know that seems kind of odd because here I am shooting a video, but there's a difference when you're shooting a video and you don't really have much of a response and people aren't staring at you. And well, I guess in a way you guys are staring at me, but live crowds, I'm just not real good in live crowds, especially with strangers. So I took the rest of Thursday just kind of to take it easy. Got up Friday morning, and Friday was pretty much just a take it easy day because I was still pretty tired from the long trip. It took like it was about 13 hours from St. Louis, Missouri to Charlotte. Especially going through the mountains, that took a little time because the speed limit had been dropped so far, and like I said, it was a pretty long trip, and really all I did was stop for gas along the way. I didn't really stop to eat or anything. And then Friday evening, the granddaughters came. Now my granddaughters live with their father, so they have to arrange visits and everything, and so they got there Friday evening, and I spent some time with them Friday evening. And then Saturday we went to a park, and they roller skated and played on the playground, stuff like that. I shot some video, which I put in my short videos here on YouTube, and it was a pretty good visit. The kids are growing up, and as kids do. I find it really hard to kind of get to know them when I'm not there all the time. I only see them like once a year, and usually when I go to see them, there's always so much going on around us that it's kind of hard to spend any individual time with any of them. So, but you always try, and all that. So I was up late, pretty late Saturday night, and then Sunday I had another memorial service to go to. So I met some people at a place called Freemore's Tavern over in I guess it's kind of the southwest side of Charlotte. It's an area that used to be kind of run down, but they've revitalized it. I hear it's a bunch of yuppies and stuff hang out over that area now, but it's really nice over there now. It's right off of Freedom Drive at Moorhead. I don't know how many of you know the area, but anyway, so I met with some people there, and we sat around and talked for an hour and a half or so, and then we went to this memorial service for my friend Paul. His name is Paul Irvin, but over the years he changed his, well, he didn't change his identity, changed his alias, so he was Paul Irvin, and then there was quite a few years he was known as Pablo, and he went through a spell of homelessness and stuff, and then he became a street preacher. At least the story I hear is that he sat down with the Bible in a tent beside a creek, read the Bible for like 3 or 4 days, read it cover to cover, and then he read the Bible cover to cover quite a few times after that. But he used to stand out at Sharon Amity and Milton Road in Charlotte, where he called his block. It was his block, and he would just stand and wave to people. He was just that kind of guy. He was always really friendly, and tried to get people to find the good in everybody. He always put a smile on a face. Very humble guy. I had lost contact with Paul, Pablo, Moses, Seven for quite a few years. But I'm one of these people that I'm real big on trying to find people that have an impact on my life in some way, shape, or form. So I was looking for him. I guess it was back in 2018, 2019. I had put a post on Facebook, that I was trying to find this friend of mine, and I did manage to run across him. A mutual friend of mine found him, and told me that he had been through this program at a place called About Face Charlotte, where they help people, kind of get their lives together, get them off the street. And so they did, but the problem is that he had been recently attacked. It was a robbery gone bad. Somebody tried to kill him, after they tried to rob him. I guess he fought back or whatever, but they succeeded. I mean, he lived through it, but they succeeded. And I spoke with his daughter during this time that he was in the hospital, and you know, I told her who I was. They were real skeptical about people being in contact with him right at first, because he had gone through such a brutal attack and everything, and didn't know because the guy that did it hadn't been caught yet, and they were wanting to make sure that, you know, he was going to be safe. And I explained to him, you know, well, I went to school with Paul at, you know, Northeast Junior High in Charlotte, and then I also went to Independence High School with him. And we had been, you know, remained friends and had seen each other quite a few times over the years. But as people do, you know, you move on in life and you lose contact, and then you try and find it again. So I did manage to leave my number with his daughter, and while he was in the hospital, and you know, during that time he was on a respirator and a ventilator or whatever they call them things, and was really unconscious at that point. But it wasn't but just a few days later, apparently he came to, and he picked up the phone, and I guess his daughter told him, you know, that there was this guy Jimmy that was looking for him, and gave him my number. He calls me, and he didn't call me Jimmy, he didn't call me Jim, you know, he didn't say, hey man, it's nice to see you. The first thing out of his mouth was brother. And you know, that really hit home with me at that point. You know, we'd been friends forever. You know, it was really strange that he still felt that attachment, you know, or likeness, or closeness, or bond, or, you know, I can't really explain what it is. But it was after all these years, you know, not being in touch with me, and then, you know, he picks up the phone and calls me. The first thing he says is brother. I mean, that was just wow. So, you know, him and I stayed in pretty good contact. You know, he would call me, and, you know, we talk about, you know, his life and what he had been through recently and his adventures and, you know, stuff like that. He was telling me that how much better his life was, but he was still out there on the block, and he called that going to work, you know, because his job in God's eyes apparently was to, you know, spread the word of God. And that's what he did. He would quote scriptures to people, and people would stop and, you know, wave to him at the stoplight, and they would talk to him, you know, in the window any chance they got. And there were people that, you know, he became a norm out there. So there were other people that, you know, became friends with him over the years, just from seeing him on the street corner. And you know, he was kind of a staple in Charlotte. There's videos of him on YouTube. I don't know if you guys can look him up, but he went by Moses 7 Charlotte, and that's how, you know, people find him on Facebook. I mean, I'm sorry, Facebook too. He's on Facebook, but he's also on YouTube, you know, doing some videos. And but anyway, so his service was Sunday afternoon, memorial service, and it was pretty nice. It was in an old church, uptown Charlotte, or uptown, downtown, whichever you like to say. You know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. But anyway, it was an old Catholic church that had been turned into like an auditorium, I guess. And this company, this organization called About Face Charlotte, set it all up. This lady Hannah was a wonderful person, and had dealt with Paul pretty much, you know, since the beginning. And there were some people there from school, and there were people there that, you know, knew him from the street. You know, little kids that had grown up seeing him out there, and kind of felt like, you know, they needed to go pay their homage to this guy, because he was such a heartwarming fella. He didn't ever ask for anything. He didn't expect to be famous or any of that, but it seems like, you know, he actually was, without trying to be. which is that's kind of a miracle in itself, you know. But anyway, so it was really nice. They had a big picture of him that was probably, I don't know, 3 feet by 4 feet, something like that. And then they had he used to carry staffs. I guess he like walking sticks, but he called them a staff. And they had some of those there. And as I said, there were probably about 7 or 8 people that got up and kind of told their stories about, you know, their adventures or their encounters with Moses 7. Kind of sad. This guy had so much to live for, and you know, I want to get into great detail before I went to the service, you know, about what happened, and they're speculating that he possibly had a heart attack, that he hadn't been seen for a few days, and one of the windows in his apartment was open, and they went in and found him. I don't know if he was in bed or on the floor or on the couch, or you know where he was at the time, but they did find him deceased. But Paul was a great guy. You know, every time I talked to him, we talked for a couple hours at a time. And the last time I spoke with him, we were talking about this picture I have of me and him from like 1999. He incidentally lived in an apartment building, well, the same one that I did, but it was the apartment right next to mine. And we were talking about this picture that we took in 1999 and how we were going to recreate it next time I saw him. Now, this was probably in August or September of last year, 2024. And but he had just gotten his new number, his phone number changed, companies or something to that effect. But anyway, so we had planned on getting together this summer. I was going to go out to Charlotte. We were going to recreate that photo, and but I hadn't heard from him. So when his birthday rolled around, that's kind of how I found out that he had been deceased. Was I went to wish him a happy birthday on Facebook, and there was a lady, her name was Melissa, who had written like a little memorial to him, you know, sad that he was gone and that type thing. And so I had her text message me on Instant Messenger, and I was like, you know, can you kind of tell me what's going on? And, you know, she explained to me that, you know, Paul had passed away, but she didn't go into detail as how. That's why I had to wait till later. This lady was his landlord, and she said he was one of her best tenants. He was, you know, nice, and he would help out, you know, take people's garbage out. He would, you know, help with the garden. They had a garden apparently, and he would help with the garden and stuff like that. He was always thinking of others before himself, which is pretty unusual in the world we live in today. People just don't, you know, they don't take the time to think about others anymore, or what others may be feeling, or what others may be doing, or, you know, how they can treat them in their life to make their situation better. But Paul always did. And anyway, I didn't run into her, or even if I did at the memorial service, you know, if I ran into her or saw her, you know, I don't know, because I really kind of just stuck with the crowd that I was with. But I did see a couple other people that I knew from school that I recognized right off, and I was only clarified with one of them. I heard his name, and he was a kid that used to break dance in school, and they had a breaking team. I don't know how many you know what breakdancing is. You know, is that all pop and lock and stuff? You know, the R&B or rap or whatever in the 80s, which, by the way, was so much better than what was being rapped about today. But They used to go to competitions. Him and Paul were on a breaking team, and that was something I really never knew. I mean, it's you think you know somebody for that long. I mean, junior high school, I was 13, 14 years old, and I've known this guy that long. I never knew he was on a breakdancing team, and I knew him all through school. And how I never knew that was just, I don't know, it's just beyond me. But, the little things you find out, and some of the adventures that people had with him. He used to live behind this bar called Loafers in Charlotte. And he had this reptile room that, he had snakes and lizards and all kinds of stuff, exotic birds and everything else in there. And that was kind of interesting because I never knew that. When I had seen Paul last, physically face to face, he was living in an apartment, and we had gone to a strip club together, and he was dating some dancer there. And of course, at that time in my life, I was partying a lot, and we were out pretty late that night because he had to wait for his girl to get off work. So when we went back to his place, the man told me to sleep in his bed. He gave me his bed, and him and his girl slept on the couch in the living room. Who does that? You know what I mean? Just always a great friend. I don't even remember. I think I was between like relationships at the time or something. I don't even remember why I was at his place. I think that was kind of during one of my down periods in my life myself. And then I left there. I didn't see him from that point on. So it was really a great thing to be in contact with him by phone, at least, for the time that we were. And every time he would call me, he would always say, "Hey, brother, how you doing? What have you been up to?" And stuff like that. And then before we hung up, he would always tell me he loved me, and that always hit home, knowing that I had a friend like that for so long and so many years, that it was an unconditional love. He never asked me for anything. He never made me feel bad because I didn't visit with him in Charlotte, or anything like that. He never had anything really cross to say about anybody. We talked about politics and religion a little bit, but that's only because he was a street preacher, and he had his opinions about religion and the different denominations and things like that, and I had my own opinions, and we all do. We all have our own thoughts and our own opinions and our own ideals and our own values and morals, and we discuss those things, him and I. But he never held any of that against me, and I never held any of that against him. I knew that he was a free thinker. He was definitely a deep thinker, for sure. Very smart, this guy was. He was great with finances, and you wouldn't think so, with him living on the street like he did for so long. But he always said he kind of felt at one with nature. He got out in the woods and threw a tent, and he slept on a tent and a mattress for a long time. And he said that he was out there so long that the animals, even the animals became timid to him. And there's a video about him where he's interviewed on the street, and he talks about how when he was a kid he was really cruel, and he didn't have any problem walking up to like ant piles and destroying them or whatever and kicking them around. And but he realized that after he lost everything he had and wound up on the streets, that was cruel. That's their castle, and that's where their home is. That's where they rest their heads. And he talks about how he would never ever do that again, and he doesn't understand how he did it then, but except just being a cruel kid. He talks about people trying to find the love in their heart. You got to have love in your heart, no matter what your situation is, or you know, who your enemies are, or, you know, who pisses you off. You've always got to find love in your heart. And he always has a way of making you think, you know, without coming right out and say, okay, now think about this. He was knew his Bible, that's for sure. You know, he could quote a scripture and then explain that scripture. And if you went to the Bible and you looked that scripture up, whether it was a King James version or, you know, New International Version or whatever, he was always, you know, at least every one I ever looked up was 100% correct. And he had his favorite ones. You know, he had his favorite verses, quotes that he shared, and he would share them on the street. You know, people had any questions or, you know, about who God is and, you know, things like that, or wanted to know why he was standing out there. He would tell you quick, fast, and in a hurry. You know, he was out there to do God's work, because apparently when he was in the hospital, there was a story that I heard that came from one of the ladies that had, you know, worked with him a little bit in the at this Reach Out Charlotte or Turnabout Charlotte or whatever it was, that when he was laying in the hospital, he said that God visited him, and he remembers reaching out, and God said, no, you're not coming with me yet. You got work to do. And that kind of hit home with me, because, you know, that was what he did. You know, he was out there trying to make sure that even if people didn't know about God, that after talking to him, they would. And, you know, I don't know what you guys' religion is, or, you know, if you're Catholic, or if you don't believe in God, if you're atheist or agnostic or whatever, that's cool. You know, that's your right to be that way. And he never forced it on anybody, you know, but there were all kinds of people, you know, that passed him every single day. And, you know, there were people that actually looked for him to be there. And I can only imagine, you know, that a lot of the people that he associated himself with over the years saw him out there, because that's like a main thoroughfare between the east side of Charlotte and then the north side of Charlotte, and there's a lot of traffic out there. So, you know, he was able to touch a lot of lives. And there was even, you know, like I said, there were people there that, you know, there were little kids that had grown up and seeing him out on the street, you know, preaching and waving at people that showed up, and, you know, not for anything else, but just to, you know, tell people how much they appreciated him as a person, because Paul was definitely a special person. Okay, so it was Paul when he was, you know, a kid, and then it was Pablo during like his roaring, well, I like to call the roaring 20s, and then as he got older, and especially when he started preaching on the street, it was Moses 7 Charlotte, and he, you know, he was real strong in the Word. Now, you know, he was just like anybody else. He had his faults. He liked to drink, you know. And I personally don't drink, but that's just because I choose not to. And I don't need to get through life. Alcohol and drugs have really caused a lot of problems in my life, so I steer clear of those if I can. But Paul did drink, and he drank quite often. But still, nonetheless, the service was just, you know, with all the inspiring stories that I heard and things that I never knew about him, and it was just really special. So anyway, after the service, I decided that I was going to go back to Freemore's Tavern over in Charlotte, and I sat around with these same people that I went with, and I had a bite to eat, and, you know, said my goodbyes, and, you know, some really good people. I'm not going to say their names on YouTube because I'm not sure they would want me to, but, you know, I have a lot of respect and a lot of love for them as individuals. But I left and headed home at about, I don't know, it was probably 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. And it was a good trip. It's kind of lonely, as I said before. It's really hard to make a trip that far away for that long and not at least get bored or tired. So I went up, when I went in Interstate 40 to 321. It took me up 321 to Interstate 85 because I was going to the southwest side of Charlotte. And when I went back, it took me down 85 to 74 through Kings Mountain, up Interstate 26, which goes from was that Gaffney area, South Carolina, up to Asheville. And I hoped and prayed that, when I got to Asheville, that, after that construction and stuff that's going on up there, that it was clear. And it was. I lucked out. I gambled and I lucked out that there was, no traffic. So there was one car in front of me, one behind me, and we did 35. And I kind of, it slowed me down a little bit because of the speed limit, but it wasn't too bad. But I did make it home in a pretty decent amount of time. It was about 13 hours, something 12, 13 hours. But see, there's a 1 hour time change when you go that way. And it's in, I want to say Roane, Tennessee, Roane or Rhone or Rhon or something. I don't know, but there's a big sign that goes across the road that says that you're entering the new time zone. So it's hot here. It's nice out today. We got a storm coming in. The wind's picked up quite a bit today, but anyway, yeah, it's a long trip. I did manage to get pretty cheap gas along the way a couple of times, but man, Illinois, what do you guys got going on in Illinois? Geez, gas was $3.19 a gallon for unleaded there. Pritzker needs to get his shit skirt together or something. That guy, I swear, those Democrat-run states are horrible. And I don't like really stopping in Illinois because, I carry my firearm pretty much wherever I go. And in Illinois, you're not allowed to, I've got a conceal and carry permit, but in Illinois, you're not supposed to have your magazine inside your firearm. It's like a 3-step rule or something like that. So you have to have your gun in one place, your magazine in another, so that it takes like 3 or 4 steps for you to actually be able to operate and protect yourself. I could only imagine if somebody tried to carjack me or something, I'd be like, oh, excuse me a minute, I have to go through this 4 fucking, rule thing that Illinois got going on, and shit, by that time my car's gone, I'm robbed, and I'm standing there looking stupid or something, But anyway, the weather was nice, the whole trip. It was really windy on the way there, really high winds, and it was rainy and cold on the way there, and but on the way back it was really nice out. I guess it was probably, I don't know, 60, 65 degrees pretty much the whole way, so it weren't too bad. But anyway, I got 8 people on here watching. I hate to cut you guys short, but I usually only do this for about a half hour. I know I'm working a little early today. I've decided to work a different schedule. I've only been working 8-hour shifts here the last week or so, just because I'm burnt out. I really needed this time away when I took this trip, and believe me, I used it to my full advantage to kind of rest and get myself back together. But next week I start my 10-hour shifts again, so that's when you're used to making great money, and then you work less hours and the money's not so great. It makes you appreciate the fact that, well, first of all, I'm employed. I really appreciate that for sure. There's a lot of people out there that aren't employed these days. But is it because there's no jobs, or is it because they don't want to work? That's the question. I personally believe it's because a lot of people don't want to work for the kind of money that, you know, I was making when I was a teenager. But, you know, so be it. But it's really nice. The overtime's really great, and I enjoy what I do for a living. You know, it helps me afford my lifestyle. Not that I have much of one. I mean, I don't travel a whole lot and stuff like that. You know, every once in a great while I'll go on a trip or a day trip. You know, and stuff. But anyway, so you guys, all 5 of you that's left, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. If you don't mind, you know, if you want to like and subscribe, I'd sure appreciate it. I don't expect people to, because, you know, I'm not making any money off of this, and I could give a shit less whether I do or not. I just like reaching out to people and kind of sharing with them, you know. Everybody has a story, and some stories are better than others, and some people are, you know, they inspire people through their stories and through their share, when they share their thoughts and things like that. And I hope that, you know, I've been able to share something with somebody out there somewhere. You know, one of the probably 20 people I've had stop in, you know, on this trip, I hope I've been able to kind of share something with, maybe that'll inspire them a little bit. I think more than anything else, when I was in Charlotte, I learned 3 things. You know, love your friends, first and foremost. Always enjoy the people that are in your lives, because you never know when they're going to go. Number 2, always enjoy your family and always make time for them. Because you never know, like, you know, even with friends, you never know how long your family's going to last and how long they're going to be around. And number 3 is that anywhere you go, no matter if you're alone or not, always enjoy the ride. You know, it was really nice to take a trip that far, even though it was long. You know, like I said, it was about 13 hours or something like that to get there. But it gave me some time to think, and I used that time really wisely to, you know, kind of reflect on, you know, friendships and family, and, you know, the situation that I have, that, you know, the life that I've kind of built for myself. And I was also able to make a 2-hour video on YouTube. So that was kind of it in a nutshell. But anyway, you guys take it easy, and we'll see you again another time. Remember, ride home with me. Whenever you see that, I'm here. All right, you guys take it easy. Peace.